How do we think of George Fosberg when we look at the illegal abortion he perpetrated? Do we look at him as a doctor? Or because he lost his license for criminal behavior, do we look at him as somebody else with medical training? Either way, he was far more typical of criminal abortionists than the woman herself taking a rusty coat hanger out of the closet. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and today is January 23rd. Welcome to the Sisyphean Journal, where we look at women's abortion deaths and have discussions about how we can keep women safer, either by preventing the abortions in the first place or by getting rid of quackery. And today we are looking at the January 23rd, 1944 death of 20-year-old Geraldine. Geraldine was a secretary at an electric company in Chicago when she learned that she was pregnant in January of 1944. The father was her fiance, who was in the Army. Geraldine turned to her mother, Leah Schuler, who went with her on January 14th to speak to one of Mrs. Schuler's friends, a 49-year-old nurse named Avis Conrad. So Conrad took them to a rooming house where disgraced Dr. George Fosberg was living. Now, Fosberg had lost his license for purely criminal behavior. It had nothing to do with malpractice and nothing to do with abortion, but nevertheless, he was an unlicensed physician, which has happened with safe and legal abortion deaths. We saw some of those in Miami. Now, Fosberg examined Geraldine on the 14th, agreed to do an abortion, and made arrangements for her to return on January 17th. So the women, all three of them, returned on the 17th. Geraldine's mother paid Fosberg $100 for the abortion, and he and the nurse took Geraldine into the basement where the abortion was performed. Now, everything seemed to have gone well until the 20th, when Geraldine took ill. By the 22nd, she took a sudden turn for the worse, so that evening, close to midnight, her parents took her to the hospital. Her condition deteriorated, and she died sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. on January 23rd. Her mother told the police what had happened and led them to the rooming house. Geraldine's mother told the police what had happened and led them to the rooming house. There, they found Fosberg, to quote the news, in the dusty basement of the house, walking through stacks of his old records as a physician. And the police confiscated 7 sets of surgical instruments. Now, Nurse Conrad testified against Fosberg in the trial, admitting that she had witnessed the abortion. Now, Fosberg took the stand in his own defense. He admitted that he had examined Geraldine on the dates in question and admitted that she and her mother had requested that he perpetrate an abortion, but he cried on the stand when he said that he resented the implication that he had actually gone through with it. In fact, he resented having been asked to perform an abortion in the first place, he said. He said, quote, "I suggested that she marry the man. I told her that if she had a baby, she would never regret it." Now, the jury took only 90 minutes to reach a verdict. They convicted him of the lesser charge of manslaughter rather than the more serious charge of murder by abortion. Now, the judge had originally sentenced Fosberg to a sentence of 14 years. However, because he was 79 years old at the time, his attorney argued that that was effectively a life sentence. So Fosberg was sentenced to between 1 and 3 years instead. And I've been unable to determine what charges were actually pursued against Nurse Conrad, or if she simply turned state's evidence and was able to walk free. Now, the Schuler family had moved to Chicago from Decatur, Illinois 5 years earlier. They were a working class family. After Geraldine's death in the trial, they returned to their hometown of Decatur, Illinois. So let's get a conversation started below about Geraldine's death. How much of the fault lay with the fact that abortion was illegal? How much of it lay on the social pressures against unwed motherhood? What about her choice of Fossberg as an abortionist? Let's have a civil conversation.